Buying a business can be incredibly rewarding, but there are mistakes that you can make. On this video, I describe the 12 most common mistakes when buying a business and how you can avoid them. One of the biggest mistakes people make when buying a business is that they don't buy a business at all. They buy a job. Yes, that's right. They've actually end up with a job that they bought rather than a business. So how does this happen? Well, they go after a business that's so small and so fragile that when the owner has been removed from it, well, someone's got to fill that chair. And usually the business is so small it can't afford to pay someone else to do it. So you, the business buyer, end up running the business. And that is where the stress is. The operations of the business, the customers, the suppliers, that's where you'll get your sleepless nights. So how do we avoid this mistake? It's very simple. You just buy larger businesses. And I have mastermind clients buying 7-figure revenue businesses for their very first deal for this exact same reason. You end up with a larger business with a management team that runs it day to day, and you can just enjoy the profits. They spend their own money. Yes, you heard that right. When people buying a business put their own money into a deal, it doesn't always work out the way they expect. You see, the traditional view of buying a business is that you find a business to buy, find out what the owner wants for the business, and then you go to the bank to borrow the money. The bank will probably want your house, your property, as collateral for that loan. You take the loan and you give all that money to the owner of the business. They hand you the keys, and good luck with that, because now you've got a business and you haven't got any money. So why shouldn't you do it that way? Well, quite simply, when you put your own money into a deal, especially if that money's secured with your real estate, with your house, then you are opening yourself up to a whole lot of risk. So what if I could show you a different way of doing it? What if I could show you how to buy a business without using a penny of your own money? And I have people on my mastermind programs doing exactly that for their first deal, for their second deal. Even if you've got money in the bank right now, I would say to you, don't spend it. Keep it in the bank. There are smarter ways of buying businesses than spending your own cash. Now, how do we fund the acquisition if we're not going to fund it by reaching into our own pocket? A very, very good question indeed. And there are several options depending upon the type of business we are going to buy. The first thing to remember is you can't buy a business that you can't finance. Now, you see, what people do at the beginning of their business buying journey is they think of that slightly differently. They say, I can't buy a business that I can't afford. And that stops them. They say, I can't afford that business. I haven't got the money in the bank to buy that business, therefore I can't buy it. Well, that's the wrong approach. That's the wrong mindset. What you should be thinking is, I can buy any business I want as long as I can finance it. And the opposite of that being, if I can't finance it, I can't buy it, I just move along to the next one. So there are lots of different types of finance available to people wanting to buy a business. We can use different aspects of the business as collateral for the loan. We can use the business itself. We can use the debtor book, the accounts receivables, as collateral for a loan. We can use the real estate as collateral for a loan. And we can use the fixed assets of the business, the equipment, the machinery, the vehicles, as collateral for the loan. So we've got multiple different ways, and sometimes we have to piece together several different ways, stitch them together to create the finance required to acquire the business. But the key thing is this: you don't put your own money into the deal. Very, very important. The beginner deal maker does the exact opposite. They cash in their pensions, they raid the piggy bank, they get all the money and they give it to the seller, and they always regret it. So, very important mistake. You never put your own money into a deal. You always use someone else's, and you will always get a better deal. So business buying mistake number 3 is spending too much money on the business. In other words, overpaying for the business. And I see this happen a lot with brand new deal makers. They are so keen to do the deal, they do a bad deal. They become a motivated buyer where we are looking for motivated sellers. So what happens is, because they want to get the deal done, they want to come back and tell their friends and family they bought this business, they start to give in on things in the negotiation that they wouldn't normally give in on. Worse than that, they don't negotiate at all. They say, well, the seller wants this and this is how they want it paid, and they just go along with it. Now, this deal has to work for you as well as the seller. And if it doesn't work for you, then there's absolutely no point doing it. So what we have to consider when pricing the business is the value to us. Now, there's lots of different valuation methods, but what is the most important thing is for us to be happy with the value and it to be good value for our particular situation. So, for example, if you are in business already and you're buying another business to bolt onto yours, you're going to see certain synergies between those two businesses. So there is a value to you in those synergies. Now, you might not pay for that value, but that is the value to you. If you are leaving your corporate job and getting into business, then replacing your 100,000 a year salary with a 250,000 a year profit business, well, that has a certain value to you. But I would always say negotiate everything. Everything is negotiable. And what I have found are the people who say, well, the price isn't negotiable, that is the price, take it or leave it, they're typically the ones who end up negotiating the most. So when you hear someone say that they're not going to negotiate, water off a duck's back, act as though you've never heard it, just carry on. But if you can buy the business at the right price, you go into the deal winning. Now, part of the right price, as we've said, is dictated by your value that you place on the business. The second thing that dictates the right price is how you can fund the acquisition. Because if you can't fund it, you can't buy it. So it doesn't matter what the seller wants. If you can't raise the funding or put together the structure to buy the business, then you are going to be stuck. So business buying mistake number 3, very important, is don't overpay for the business. Buy smartly and you will be a winner going into the deal. Business buying mistake number 4 is buying a business that you don't understand. You see, when you buy a business that you don't understand, you don't really know whether you're buying a good business or not. So the rule of thumb is to stick to what you know. Now, sometimes it's very clear what you know. You work in digital marketing, you already own a digital marketing agency. Buying another digital marketing business or a related business is something that you know, something that you understand. You can look at the accounts and you can understand very quickly why it's as profitable as it is or why it's not as profitable as it could be. You can see the opportunities. You can understand the business. However, when you buy something that you don't understand, you don't really know what you're looking at. For example, with me, technology, I wouldn't have a clue. I wouldn't know where to start. Is this a business going places or not going places? I just wouldn't understand it. Now, sometimes people say that they don't really understand anything. They say, Jonathan, I wouldn't know what to buy because I have no experience in anything at all. Well, consider your experience as an employee of different businesses. Consider your experience as a customer of different businesses. Alternatively, find yourself a partner. Now, I don't necessarily mean a partner in the legal sense of the word, someone who shares the equity with you. I don't mean that person necessarily. It could be someone who's retired from that sector who would be happy to help you. Yes, they don't even want you to pay them. Someone who's there to help you, advise you, consult for you. And you know something? When you have someone with experience in a sector on the team, that can help you get funding for that acquisition as well. So business buying mistake number 4 is do not buy a business that you don't understand. Business buying mistake number 5 is quitting the day job too early. By that I mean someone who gets so enthusiastic about the possibilities of business buying, they quit on Friday to start the business buying journey on Monday. Amazing, right? Well, maybe not so much, because buying a business does take time. Yes, I have got clients who bought businesses within weeks of joining my program, and I've got clients where it's taken a lot longer, and you might be somewhere in the middle. So what I would strongly suggest to you is that you keep your day job at the same time as looking for that business to buy. These days, funding can take longer than you expect. Everything can take longer than you expect. So having the security of an income is very, very important indeed. And what I always say to people is, once you've bought your business, don't quit the day job at that point either. Make sure that the income from the business is more than double what you earn in the day job. And then when it's more than double what you earn in the day job, then you can safely quit the day job and focus on business buying. But you might be thinking, if I work a full-time job, will I have time to buy a business? Surely I need to quit everything in order to give me the time. Well, absolutely not. You can buy a business evenings and weekends. Yes, you can actually put a couple of hours in a week. You can talk to the owners evenings and weekends. Remember, 80% of the heavy lifting when it comes to buying a business is done by your deal team, is done by the accountant, done by the CPA, done by the lawyer. You don't have to do those things. You are the conductor of the orchestra, making sure everything is moving towards the finish line, rather than the person playing all the instruments in the orchestra, if that makes sense. So, business buying mistake number 5 is when people quit their day job to start their business buying journey. You can do both at the same time. When buying a business, you need a great lawyer on your team. So why not use mine? His name is John Andrews, and his details are on the screen. Business buying mistake number 6 is thinking too small. You see, what happens when people start on their business buying journey is they start thinking about numbers, sizes of businesses that are numbers that are familiar to them, maybe the same value as their property or the same as their salary. It's way too small. You need to think bigger. And one of the ways of thinking bigger is to spend time, hang out with people who are already buying businesses. Now, every single business buyer that I have trained over the years always looks back on their first deal and says, oh, it was way too small. I should have thought bigger right from the start. So why don't people do this? Well, they don't do it because they have a comfort zone. They have a comfort zone because the only financial numbers they are familiar with in their life is their salary, their mortgage. Those are the numbers that people feel comfortable with. So part of my role is to get you out of your comfort zone and help you think bigger, make you realize that buying a $1 million business is actually easier than buying a $150,000, $200,000 a year business. So when you start buying these larger businesses, several things happen. They're easier to finance. You buy better businesses and you reach your goals faster. So if you've got a goal to reach a certain level of financial comfort where you can retire, to get to that goal is going to take you a certain number of steps. And you've got two choices. You can take little bunny hops and buy those $150,000, $200,000 a year businesses, or you can take kangaroo leaps. You can get there in 3 big leaps rather than 10 small bunny hops. Which would you prefer? But it all starts with you. It all starts with your mindset, your attitude towards business buying. So the bigger you think, the faster you will reach your goals. Business buying mistake number 7 is not getting the right advisors, not surrounding yourself with the right people, not getting the right deal team, as we call it. So what does this mean? When you're buying a business, you need professional help and guidance in the form of the right legal support and the right financial support. So you need a great accountant, CPA, and lawyer to help you do a deal. And there will be other people, depending upon the type of deal and the size of deal, that are going to be very important as well. You're going to need someone to look after the people aspects of the takeover. You're going to need someone to help raise the money to finance the deal. So you need this deal team to support you. You see, buying a business is not a DIY job. It's not a do-it-yourself job. The better your team, the more likely it is that your deal will happen. You see, if you don't have a great lawyer, for example, that deal will stumble and fall over before it reaches the finish line. And that could be a costly mistake. So having the right people are going to help you not just do better deals, but help your deals happen faster. And I know from personal experience the difference a great lawyer on your team will make to you. So when I see people saying that they're going to do it all by themselves, they're going to take templates off the internet and they're going to figure it all out as they go along, all I see is someone heading for absolute disaster. It is a huge mistake. In fact, it is business buying mistake number 7, not getting the right people on your team to help you get your deal done. Business buying mistake number 8 is not having enough cash. You see, businesses fail not through lack of profitability, but through lack of cash. And when you have got a business group that is growing, it needs more cash than you would ever realize. So this is something that I want you to consider very seriously. Everyone negotiates the price, right? And everyone negotiates the terms, the way the price is paid. But what people don't negotiate so much is, and probably hardly ever, they don't negotiate the amount of working capital that is left behind in the bank to operate the business. So working capital is the cash that's needed on a day-to-day basis to pay the bills. It's to bridge that gap between work being done and work being paid for. And working capital is a negotiation. It's a negotiation between your CPA and the seller's accountant. And when you negotiate working capital, you've got to remember that without that working capital, there may not be a business in 3 months' time. And I've seen people who've bought great businesses, profitable businesses, and quite literally 3 months later, they start to run out of cash. All it takes is an expensive month and some slow payers, and there isn't enough cash in the business. So negotiating that working capital amount is very, very critical. So think of it as a triangle: the price, the terms, the working capital, and those 3 things combined are going to create a successful acquisition for you. And this is a very serious subject, really, because this can be the difference between success and failure. So you might think once you've bought the business, you can raise money to give you that additional working capital. Well, lenders don't really like to lend for working capital. They like to lend for growth and investment and buying assets, as opposed to just getting you through to the end of the month. So when you're looking at a business, always look at the cash balance that that business has. So as part of your initial diligence, you're going to look at the bank statements of the business. And those bank statements are going to give you a clue as to how much cash that business has on a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis. And if the business is running in its overdraft at all times, that is clearly a business that hasn't got enough cash, and maybe that is why the seller is motivated to sell. So business buying mistake, big one this, is not having enough cash in the business. Business buying mistake number 9 is buying an underperforming business, otherwise known as a distressed business. Now, why shouldn't you do this? Because it can look very attractive, because sometimes with these distressed businesses, you can pick them up for absolutely nothing. So you could buy a substantial business for $1. For £1, you could buy a distressed business. So it becomes very, very tempting, because then you are seduced by this idea that you can turn the business around and turn this business that isn't making any money into an incredibly profitable business, and then you can sell it for a small fortune. Well, let me tell you why that is not likely to happen. First of all, it's distressed for a reason. And the owner, who's owned it for 10 years, knows way more about it than you, still can't make that business work. What are the chances of you as the new owner coming in making that work? Now, I know there's loads of stories of people who've taken distressed businesses, turned them around, sold them for a fortune, but you know something, they are few and far between. You see, over the years, I've done exactly that. I've bought the distressed business, I've done really well by turning it around and selling it, but I've also bought those underperforming businesses and I have struggled and sometimes given up. And I've been doing this a while. So why should you put yourself through this? You should only ever buy an established, profitable business that makes money from day one. You want a business that's been making money for years, year in, year out, despite the sellers, year in, year out. And then you take over the business and it continues making that money for you. That's what you want. See, if you're going to instrument some sort of turnaround, oh my goodness, I hope you like sleepless nights. I hope you like people knocking on the door, collecting money for unpaid bills, because that's exactly what you are going to have. You see, the seller of that underperforming business hasn't told you half the story. You only discover the other half once you own the business. It could be a living nightmare for you. So business buying mistake here, big one, is buying that distressed business thinking that you're getting a bargain, but you're not paying anything for it. Believe me, you will pay in time, energy, sleepless nights, and you might even have to put money into the business to keep it afloat. I hope I've put you off that idea. Only buy established, profitable businesses. You will thank me later. Buying a business is just so rewarding, and I put together a free training showing you exactly how I do it. If you look in the video description below this video, there is a link. You click the link, you're taken through to the training, watch the training, and I'll show you exactly how to buy a business successfully. Business buying mistake number 10 is not understanding the seller's motivation for selling you their business. Now, why is this important? So people have different reasons for selling a business. You might think that top of the list is money, but if you're buying from retiring owners, quite often they have made very good money over the years, because remember, you should only ever be buying established, profitable businesses. So they've made good profit over the years. In fact, if they haven't made good profit over the years, you probably don't want to buy them in the first place. So they've made their money. It's not all about the money anymore. It's about retirement. That's actually the number one reason for people to sell their businesses in the world today. There are more people coming up to retirement age than ever before. And of course, the worldwide pandemic scenario of the last few years has created this groundswell of owners who've just had enough. They want to retire now rather than holding on for another 2 or 3 years. So retirement is reason number one. Ill health, unfortunately, goes with the age of retirement, and then pursuing other interests. They want to spend more time with the grandchildren. They want to spend more time at the holiday home. They want to travel before it is too late. So these are the motivations that people have. But when you drill down, you find other motivations. They want to make sure that their daughter is still employed by the business. They want to make sure that the staff are well looked after. Their motivation might be to sell the business, retain the real estate, and lease you the real estate so they have an ongoing income from the real estate. So we have all of these reasons. Now, when we start to understand the true reason why someone wants to sell their business, We can craft a deal that matches that motivation, that helps the seller get what they want out of the deal. And they will thank you for it because that is what they want to achieve. It's not about selling for the most amount of money. It's about helping them get what they want out of the deal at the same time as you getting what you want out of the deal. So when I talk to a business buyer and they're telling me about a deal, I always say, one of the first questions I ask is, what is the motivation of the seller? And if they can't tell me the motivation of the seller, or they haven't understood the motivation of the seller, then they need to go back and find that out, because that is the starting point for every negotiation. Business buying mistake number 11 is not understanding the reputation of the company that you are buying, because every seller is going to tell you it's an amazing business. Every seller is going to say, our customers love us and they keep coming back. But do they? So what you want to do in your due diligence is understand the behavior of customers. Do they stay for a while and disappear? Do they only ever buy once? Is there a low frequency of return? And then you want to do your online research, Google reviews and Trustpilot. What do customers say about this business? Now, what I've discovered is that the business owner who tells you everyone loves them is being slightly delusional. It's impossible for everyone to love you. But what you want to make sure is that there is a groundswell of positivity about the business that you're buying. And I've made this mistake where I've bought businesses and I haven't done that initial research. I believed what the seller was saying, and then I discovered that I've got a business with a terrible reputation. And you know something? It takes a long time to turn that around. Now, new ownership can go some way to changing people's perception of the business, but sometimes it can take several years to overcome that negativity that the local community have about that business, because it can be used against you by your competitors and turn it into a positive feeling. So understanding the reputation that the business has that you're buying is really, really important. Business buying mistake number 12 is doing insufficient due diligence. So what is due diligence? Due diligence is the checking that you do and your advisors do to make sure that the business that you're buying is what the owner has told you that it is. Now, the truth of the matter is that every owner who's selling their business is going to tell you all the good stuff and not tell you the not so good stuff. So what happens during diligence is you discover all these things that have been hidden below the surface. Now, the truth of the matter is that not everything is ever discovered during due diligence. It can't discover everything. However, your contract, your sale and purchase agreement is going to protect you against those things that you discover later that aren't so good to find. Now, sometimes new business buyers and experienced business buyers skimp on diligence because we take a leap of faith and we say, look, everything's going to be all right. We can handle any problems that arise. Now, that's all well and good, and probably you can handle problems as they arise. But due diligence is your opportunity to renegotiate price and terms. You've already done the first price and terms negotiation right up at the beginning, and now later on we're going to do our second price and terms negotiation as a result of the facts that you have discovered during the diligence process. So now what happens is that we can get a fairer price for the business based upon what we know about the business. Now, the diligence can be done by you to a certain extent, especially if it's a business that you understand. But the real diligence is typically around the finances, and that's where your CPA, your accountant, can do that for you. And as a result of that diligence, you will be armed, ready to go into that second negotiation to tell them that maybe their business isn't worth what you both thought it was worth, but you can still do a deal, but it has to be on different terms. So never, ever skimp on due diligence, because it will cost you a lot of money.